James 1:16 through 18. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Look at verse 16. Scholars argue about whether this verse belongs with the former verses or with the latter verses. The meaning nor the grammar give any definitive answer. But if we take the time to contemplate this ambiguous passage, we will see that James is saying one thing: sin is deception. If you consider verse 16 as connected to verse 15, he is saying that sin brings death, so do not fall into that trap and be killed. If we consider verse 16 as connected to verse 17, as it is here in the ESV, James seems to be saying, don't be tricked into chasing gifts that aren't from God. His are the only good gifts. Either way, sin is deceptive and God is trustworthy. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Verse 17, as I said, is clarifying that God is the only giver of good gifts, but it also points to his unchanging nature, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. If God is unchanging, then he is trustworthy, and totally unlike the doubting person who wavers back and forth in their loyalty. When God says sin is bad and that what he promises is good, we can always trust him. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Verse 18 speaks to our purpose as Christians, namely to be first fruits of his creatures. Now, the first fruits in the Old Testament was the portion of a harvest which was offered to God at the temple. It was the best portion, the sacred portion of the harvest. So the comparison seems to communicate that believers are for a purpose, that is, to please God, not for sin or selfishness. Beyond that, first fruits also implies that James' readers were the first portion of a much bigger harvest. Perhaps he is speaking of the many millions who would one day believe, and perhaps he is referring to the age to come, when all will be made new and we will see a universe ordered to perfection. But either way, I think the main point is that Christians are brought forth by the word of truth for the purpose of glorifying God. The gospel gives us a new birth into a God-glorifying life, while sin births death into our lives. The contrast is clear. We were given new life by God's good news, and the only alternative is death by sin.